CCP is doing what CCP has always done in times of crisis. In 1989, CCP turned against its own students to silence the democracy protest. Now, again, we have the Chinese economy collapsing because of US tariffs, and CCP is turning against its own citizens. But in a rare move in China, it seems more and more business owners are speaking up against what's going on and how badly this is affecting their families and their employees. Here is just one clip.
Last month, I took an order for a batch of copper parts. I've already bought all the materials. It cost tens of thousands, and everything has been cut, ground, washed, and engraved. It's not finished yet, but today the customer messaged me and said the delivery might be delayed. After customs clearance, the taxes have gone up too much. A TikToker who works as a bulk trade supplier shared in his video the huge pressure he's under after the sudden increase in US tariffs.
订单量5000多万美金，今年我们订单已经排到了26年的5月份。
Our orders are worth over 50 million US dollars. This year, we're already booked through May 2026. But with this 30% tariff hike, the impact on us is huge. If you're a small startup, it's not such a big deal because you don't ship enough to fill an entire container. But for us, it hits hard. Our profit margins in bulk trading are already razor thin. Now with a 34% tariff, it's like getting knocked to the ground.
Stories like these have flooded the Chinese social media, and that's why CCP is forcing its censors to work overtime to delete and censor any post regarding the Chinese economy and how bad it's suffering. Now, I'm sure CCP's 50 cents army is likely downvoting any videos criticizing CCP in order to suppress its reach. They have been caught doing this earlier too. So if you guys can take a second and hit the like and subscribe button down below, it helps out our video tremendously. Now, all the while CCP is suppressing any criticism, they have also increased their propaganda to spread anti-American sentiment all around China and among Chinese citizens. One of the ways they are doing this is by posting this clip of Chairman Mao.
As to how long this war will last, we are not the ones who can decide. It used to depend on President Truman, and it will depend on President Eisenhower, or whoever to become the next US president. It's up to them. No matter how long this war is going to last, we'll never yield. We'll fight until we completely triumph.
The most ironic part of using this clip is the fact that Mao said this back in 1953. And soon after saying this, just 2 years after this clip, Mao starved to death 50+ million Chinese citizens by killing the country's agricultural production. He ordered millions and millions of farmers to stop farming and switch to producing steel and iron. All the while, hundreds of millions of Chinese citizens had no food for their family and they starved to death. It seems like Xi Jinping is trying to do the same thing, because even though the Chinese leadership doesn't realize it, Chinese citizens realize that China is overly dependent on US markets, and it's going to be near impossible for Chinese businesses to replace that market overnight. In fact, we have another Chinese citizen here explaining this as simply as one could.
Honestly, these past few days, I just can't stand it anymore. Stop talking about raising tariffs and standing strong, like it's some action movie. Trying to act tough is a fast track to self-destruction. Making money, that's the real deal. The US, 350 million people, controls a third of the world's consumer market. You know what that means? Out of every $3 spent worldwide, one comes from an American wallet. The EU has 450 million people, but their spending power doesn't even come close to the US. We've got 1.4 billion people working our butts off making stuff, but our buying power is only a fifth of America's. The numbers are right there. Can cursing out the US for being a bully put food on your table? The dollars they're holding, that's the golden ticket in the global business world. Everyone's shouting, we don't need the US market. Wake up! You go sell in Southeast Asia, you're getting paid in Indonesian rupiah. Go to South America, it's pesos. The exchange rates will chop you up before you even get your money. But when you sell to America, you're getting paid in US dollars. spendable anywhere in the world. Look at the Russia-Ukraine war, all hell's broken loose, but the US dollar is still sitting pretty on the world's throne. That's reality. Step outside the dollar system and you don't even have a ticket to the international trade game. And don't give me that, let's shift to Africa, Asia, and Latin America talk either. Our African brothers? A lot of them don't even have reliable electricity. How are they going to buy your fancy appliances? India looks like a big market? Sure, but good luck getting paid. They'll drag it out till your business goes bankrupt. Only America, with its 300+ million middle-class consumers, is standing there with open wallets. No scams, no delayed payments. Even with all the sanctions these past couple of years, it's still the cleanest market on earth. Compared to places where you have to deal with bribes and shakedowns, the US is like a business paradise. Here's the thing. Capital is 10,000 times smarter than you or me. Norway's sovereign wealth fund, Middle Eastern oil money, national pension funds from all over the world, they've all poured their cash into the US stock market. Don't you think those countries want to act tough too? But reality is, without the US, the world's biggest consumption engine, your products won't even get the chance to break even, let alone make a profit. Rely on Russia? Iran? Come on. They're barely staying alive by selling off their resources. It's easy to curse American hegemony. It's a lot harder to face reality. At the end of the day, the global supply chain boils down to one simple truth. Whoever holds the purchasing power, holds the power, period. The US has 5% of the world's population but controls a third of its consumption. That's absolute market dominance. You can hate it all you want. But when 70% of your manufacturing depends on exports and 80% of your foreign reserves rely on trade, losing the US market is basically cutting off your own lifeline. For those shouting, "We'd rather not make money from America," listen up. Ordinary people need to eat. Companies need to pay salaries. The government needs foreign currency reserves. If you really want to play hardball with the US hurting each other in the process, who ends up losing? It's the workers on the assembly lines. It's the small business owners running factories. It's every regular person trying to make a living through exports. Trying to act tough in the face of overwhelming market power? That's just plain stupidity. If it's time to bow your head and negotiate, then bow your head. If it's time to cut profits, then cut profits. Right now, keeping your job is more important than anything else. I'm just a high school dropout, but even I know. In the business world, pride means nothing. Only supply and demand matter. You have no idea how sweet the American market is until you look at the real numbers. Instead of shouting slogans, better to figure out how to play by their rules and make money. Fill your pockets with US dollars first, then you can talk about upgrading industries or ditching the dollar. Otherwise, it's just nonsense. Bowing your head to make money? Nothing shameful about that. But gambling ordinary people's livelihoods just to save face? Now that's real stupidity. In my narrow opinion, if making life better for regular people means we have to crawl to make money, then so be it.
哪怕跪着赚钱也没啥。
Now, as you guys can tell, a lot of these clips are in Chinese, and I don't speak Chinese. So a lot of the translation come from this great channel, Inconvenient Truth, run by Jennifer Zhang. She does a great job exposing CCP's unfair and corrupt practices. But unfortunately, YouTube has decided to silence her, and that's why they demonetized her channel. So we wanted to show our support for her work. That's why if you guys can just take a second and go subscribe to her channel and tell her Business Basics sent you, I'm sure she would appreciate that tremendously. So I'll link the channel in the description and in the card above, and I highly recommend you go check her out. But moving on, one of the biggest issues that CCP is grappling with right now is the fact that China is the only country that's fighting with the United States. That means CCP is the only one that's going to be suffering the most. CCP really wanted all the other countries like Vietnam, Cambodia, and India to put up a united front. And that's exactly why CCP started spreading this misinformation campaign, where they said that Japan and South Korea are actually partnering with China to respond to US tariffs. When in fact, both Japan and South Korea came out with an official statement saying that that's not a true story. They haven't even discussed this any single time. This is when many people started to realize and started putting pieces together. CCP wants other countries to stand alongside China to fight the US. And that's exactly why Xi Jinping just announced an emergency trip to Cambodia, Vietnam, and Malaysia. But unfortunately for Xi, all these countries have agreed to negotiate with the United States already. So it doesn't look like this plan is going to work. But this is exactly why CCP is heavily pushing this type of propaganda on US social media. The same social media that Chinese citizens are not even allowed to use, but Chinese officials are using to push pro-CCP propaganda. Here, watch it yourself.
The US-triggered tariff storm sweeps the globe. Markets are in panic. The so-called global beacon now puts America first. It slaps allies in the face, treats the world with predatory practices, and makes other countries pay for MAGA, pushing the fragile world economy over the edge and pitching itself against the whole world. With China here, the sky won't fall. With around 5% economic growth, China adds the output of a mid-sized European economy every year. China has hundreds of millions of skilled workers. Chinese people are well known for their strong work ethic. China's development over the past 7 decades is a result of self-reliance and hard work, not favors from others. China's technological innovation is full of vitality. From follower to leader, from made in China to created in China, every tech bottleneck is turned into a breakthrough. Foreign investors are bullish about China. Global businesses believe the next China is still China, and the best is yet to come. Openness and win-win cooperation are ingrained in the DNA of the Chinese people. 600 years ago, Chinese navigator Cheng He led fleets to the Indian Ocean and beyond, not for territorial conquest, but for silk and ceramics trade. Today, China has become a major trading partner with over 150 countries and regions. China applies zero tariff treatment for 100% tariff lines to LDCs enjoying diplomatic ties with China, demonstrating South-South solidarity to action. The world thirsts for justice. Markets need to restore faith. Between the pond of closed markets and the ocean of economic interconnectivity, which one would you choose?
Now, along with videos like these, China has also announced that it has granted zero tariffs to many countries around the world. Here are the details of this announcement. China has granted 33 African countries with zero tariff for all their exports to China. China has remained Africa's largest trading partner for 15 consecutive years. For years, the portion of China-Africa trade in Africa's total foreign trade has increased. Now, this sounds like a great announcement, but did you guys catch that? They only granted this to African countries. China wants everyone to believe that China is a defender of free trade, when in reality, this is just a pure scam. Many African economies lack the industrial capacity to benefit from preferential access, and high-value export face barriers like technical and regulatory standards, which Beijing constantly expands, making market entry nearly impossible, let alone benefit from it. In simple terms, African countries don't have the capacity to export much of the goods to China, and that's exactly why China is giving them zero tariffs on any exports. This is like me telling everyone in Africa that I'll double the salary that I'm paying them. In reality, I don't pay anyone in Africa anything, so even if I double it, it's not gonna make a difference. That means that this move by China is purely performative for everyone else. It's purely optics. China wants the world to think that China is the defender of free trade, when in reality, China doesn't really practice free trade. They practice something called mercantilism, where they want access to everyone else's market, but they don't want other countries to have access to the Chinese market. That's why they banned Google in China, that's why they banned Facebook, Instagram, and even this video, YouTube is banned in China. CCP doesn't want foreign companies to come into China and compete with Chinese companies. All the while, they incentivize local companies to expand using free money so they can go out to other countries and put foreign companies out of business. Let me explain what I mean by this, because this is clearly a big accusation, but it's not just an accusation. Chinese steel is a perfect example of this practice. You see, CCP gives out a lot of free money in form of subsidies to steel companies in China to build up bigger and bigger factories. Now, of course, this is something a lot of countries do. They support their growing industries by giving them subsidies and tax incentives. But CCP has taken this to another level, and that's because CCP's goals are much more sinister than just supporting a growing industry. You see, CCP kept on subsidizing the Chinese steel industry even after the local steel demand was met. That means China had more than enough production to fulfill all the demands that Chinese customers had. But the goal for CCP wasn't just to satisfy Chinese customers. The goal was to flood the foreign markets with cheap Chinese steel. That way, foreign companies just go out of business. Think about it. Let's say you're an American steel producer. You have to put in your own money to build a factory, you have to put in your own money to buy or rent a land, and then you have to put in your own money, or I guess use bank loan to pay your workers, pay for supplies and everything. You cover the cost for your business. Then once the steel is ready, you go to market with your production and you sell it at a price that you are coming out with a little bit of profit. Because at the end of the day, that's why you're taking this much of a risk, to make profit. But with Chinese steel companies, the equation is drastically different. Chinese companies don't have to worry about paying for land, they don't have to worry about paying for rent, because CCP just gives them a lot of free money as subsidies. They also don't have to worry about paying interest on the loan that they take out from state banks in China, because CCP gives them loan for either no interest or cheaper rates. On top of that, sometimes CCP also helps subsidize the supplies that go into producing steel. This way, when a Chinese company goes to a foreign market, let's say here in America, they don't need to sell it at a market price to make a profit. They can sell it for much cheaper than an American company and still make a profit, and that means American companies just cannot compete with Chinese steel because the CCP is subsidizing the steel production. Then slowly and slowly, all the foreign steel companies will just go out of business. Now CCP's goal with this is simple. If there's ever a war in the future, CCP doesn't want foreign countries to have factories that can produce steel. They don't even want foreign countries to have any type of factories that can produce anything. Because think about it, what did we do in World War II? We used a lot of our factories that were producing consumer products and we switched them to produce war-related products. And CCP knows this. That's why it wants to put every factory out of business. And they're using subsidies and free money to put other companies out of business. When other countries start fighting back against this, CCP does the performative acts that I just pointed out earlier in the video and tell the world, just to show the world that China is the defender of free trade. Here we have JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon explaining exactly why we need to become less dependent on China and Russia in case there is a war in the future.
China and Russia have made it clear they want to kind of dismantle the post-World War II system. And I think the goal of all this trade stuff should be to make Europe and our trading partners, Japan, Korea, Philippines, stronger, not weaker, bring them closer as we build up our military. And any trade that protects military, that we should definitely do. I mean, we made a lot of mistakes about, as you know, pharmaceuticals, shipping, pharmaceutical ingredients, penicillin.
That we're so reliant on China for all of this stuff.
We can't rely on any potential adversary for things we need for our military. And so, there I'm quite sympathetic. That we should do, that's absolutely paramount. But the point about national security is economic security, national security are almost directly related in the long run. Hopefully when these wars get resolved, and I hope in the interest of Ukraine, where they have sovereignty when it's over, and the interest of Israel, and not being constantly attacked by terrorists on three sides, you need to keep the economic alliance together. I think it would be in Russia's and North Korea's, Iran's, and China's interest to fragment the Western world. And I think that would be the biggest long-term mistake, and I'm talking about over 30 or 40 years. I don't want to read the book about how the West was lost.
This is exactly why China is freaking out right now, because China knows it cannot just replace US demands because they have built up all the factories, all this overcapacity to compete with US businesses and to satisfy US consumer demand. But on the other hand, US consumers can take their demand and direct it to some other country. Now, I'm sure many of you guys know that we're gonna have some pain for short term, but at the end of the day, China has a lot more to lose than the United States.
Right. Now, when you think about this with tariffs, you say, okay, who's flexible and who's inflexible? We can reallocate our demand across borders. Factories that are already built cannot move. They are stuck where they are. China has developed factories for selling to the US consumer market. They have trained workers for selling to the US consumer market. We can move our demand across borders. Those factories and citizens cannot move. They're stuck where they are. And so the incidence will fall on them, just as in the property tax example, right? Now, does this automatically happen on day one? No. But will this happen in the fullness of time? Absolutely. This is just the basic economics of incidence in public finance. And and if the incidence is falling on other countries because they're inflexible, the Chinese now have to find someplace else to absorb their demand, to absorb their excess supply. And guess what? There isn't anywhere else to absorb their excess supply. Who's going to buy as much as American consumers? Nobody, right? There is no place else to absorb their excess supply.
YouTube just dropped a mind-boggling announcement. It is paying creators $64 million per day. Why? Well, because YouTube doesn't have enough creators right now. That's why you see videos on your homepage that have less than 1,000 views, like this one. Now, of course, that doesn't mean everyone should start a channel. But if you have ever wondered about starting a YouTube channel or a faceless channel, now is the perfect time. YouTube is paying creators millions every single day, and it's pushing newer and smaller channels now more than ever. But I'm sure you have many questions on how to start and grow a channel. I get these questions in my email all the time from some of you guys. That's why we have decided to put all our YouTube advice into one training bootcamp for completely free. So if you're someone interested in starting your own YouTube channel, you can sign up for this bootcamp by clicking the link in the description or scanning the QR code on your screen. This bootcamp is like a Zoom call, so it is limited to 100 people at a time. So be sure to sign up before it gets full. Now back to the video.